Well, welcome back. This part of the day is about looking at the key factors in growing demand from discerning Asian consumers. And we have a panel for you now of Tourism Australia's country managers. Philippa Harrison, who has been on a wild commute to get here, not least of which was the rain in Sydney, which I think, Philippa, was probably the biggest problem, but she's literally just flown in to moderate this panel for you. Philippa is Tourism Australia's Executive General Manager International, so she's going to lead you through this session. She's responsible for Tourism Australia's global marketing operations, its strategic partnerships and distribution development, working in partnership with the Australian tourism industry to grow the inbound market. So I'm going to leave it to Philippa. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi everybody, so Chris just introduced me, Philippa Harrison. I've recently joined Tourism Australia as Executive General Manager International and am living the dream. Just got back from 3 weeks visiting all of our markets. But prior to that, for those of you who don't know me, I have spent most of my career in tourism sales and marketing, so this session is close to my heart. I understand the pressures or the challenges that you have when you're looking at entering into a new international market, and the trade-offs that with your budget that you have to consider. So I think knowing where the opportunities are and how to make the best for your business is something that you really need to spend some time researching, and we're here to help you today with that. We've got some of the most knowledgeable people from the Asia market, which are amongst our most dynamic and fast-growing markets. So with me today, I have Andy Zhang, who is Country Manager for China, Nishant Kashkar, Country Manager India, Scott Walker, Country Manager South Korea, and to shine a light on the important business events sector, we have Elsie Tan, who is based in Shanghai and is our Regional Business Events Director.
Hello. Ni hao.
Hi, everyone.
Just before we start with the questions, I just wanted to give you a quick recap on how the markets have been performing to date. I'm sure you've heard earlier this morning that it's been 2016 was a great year for tourism. We saw growth in all markets. We saw market share growth in a lot of markets as well, which was really encouraging. And Asia has always been the shining light in that growth. We've been talking about the potential of China for many, many years now. And in 2017, we're forecasting that China will take over New Zealand as the largest source market for Australia. So that's huge. Last year, we welcomed 1.2 million arrivals, which was a growth of about 17%. Now that growth is looking to slow, but we really are looking at double-digit growth into 2020. So I think if you're a tourism business operating in Australia, this is not a market that you can ignore. India has been performing well for a long time, and we saw record growth this year, 260,000 arrivals, which was 11.3% up on last year. And Nishant's here to talk to us today about what I think is the huge potential in this market, and we probably haven't seen that yet. So really interesting to hear from Nishant about his market. South Korea was, it took a bit of a dive during the GFC, and it's remained steady for many years after that. But last year, it was our largest growing market. So it grew 24%, which was 284,000 arrivals. And Scott's here really to just give us some insight on the resurgence of that market, and it might be one that you want to have a look at again. And as I was saying, business events are really important in the mix of arrivals into Australia. It's a very high-yielding market, and in many cases counter-cyclical to leisure, so really important to us, and Elsie is going to give us some insights on that as well. We are getting a lot of business from China, many groups, some really large ones. We had 8,300 from Amway this January, but there's also potential from groups smaller than that, so Elsie's going to talk to us about that as well. So let's get on to the questions. I think the burning question is, why the growth? What's changed over the last couple of years? Andy, do you want to kick off with China?
Sure. I think for China, one of the fundamental drivers for the growth is increase in wealth. And that's on the back of tremendous economic development that we have seen in China ever since 1980s. And over the past few years, the middle class in China has essentially quadrupled. And still, as of now, we're looking at less than 20% of the market, of the population, is only middle class. And based on McKinsey's forecast, and that number is going to rise considerably from now till 2030. And when you think about travel, travel is something that becomes an item that middle class consumers would want to undertake as part of sort of the consumer habit. And what we have seen is that we have seen quite a rapid shift from the traditional group travel into FIT. So as China is growing very fast, the FIT segment is growing even faster, and I think many of you probably have seen that trend. And the reason for that shift, of course, there's a greater confidence among the Chinese consumers, and part of the confidence derives from the fact China as a country has grown so much that it is one of the superpowers in the world. And that confidence is reflected among the Chinese consumers when they go abroad. They're more experienced, which means that as they travel more often, they become more experienced travelers, and that they're willing to explore things on their own. They're willing to be more adventurous, and therefore we're seeing the dispersal. We have seen them spending more and trying out more unique experiences. And the last thing, which I believe is a very important driver of them going FIT, is the mobile device. You've got so many different apps that they can connect with the world 24/7. They can find information through their phone. And that has changed fundamentally the behaviors of Chinese consumers in planning their travel, because they can be in destination and find what to do next. And that means that there's less pressure for them to plan everything way in advance, but really just enjoy themselves, have enough time as they travel, and then discover new things through the phone. So I think one of the biggest trends that will continue is really around the affluent FIT travelers that we will see coming to Australia.
All right. Hello, everyone. I have a natural advantage over Andy and Scott, because we are the only cricket-playing nation with Australia. and that gives us a natural advantage. So on the topic of cricket, I guess Australia and India plays the third test series starting today. And I wish both the teams all the very best for a great performance. Talking about performance, it's been one key change or one key trend that I would like to highlight, what's happening in India, especially in the upper middle and the middle class families, is something called as a 55-25-5 trend. Now, what is this 55-25-5 trend? I've seen this happening in my own family, that the first generation, our parents, took their first international holiday at the age of 55. Our generation, the second generation, took their first international holiday at the age of 25. And the third generation, our kids, are enjoying the first international holiday at the age of 5. Now, considering India's demographics, and India is going to remain young till 2020, the average age of an Indian is expected to be around 28 years, which means that young India will travel at a much younger age. We have a sizable middle class of almost over 300 million, which is almost 13 times the size of Australia's population. And this is the real opportunity that India as a country has to offer. And we really look forward to working with the industry to capitalize on the growth that this market has to offer. The second interesting insight is the fact that I was just going through some of the stats before coming for this presentation. And we're looking at where are we as compared to China. So India is today what China was somewhere around 2003, 2004. So India is actually around 12 to 15 years behind China. So whilst everyone sitting in this room have seen the growth and success of China over the past decade, I guess the next generation or next phase of growth will see India emerging as one of the fastest growing markets, whether it's outbound travel out of India or inbound market into Australia. And it's expected to be in the top 5 markets by 2025. So again, we really look forward to working with you. We really appreciate the support that you've extended to us over the years, and let's make the most out of this opportunity.
Thanks, Nishant. On the Korea front, I've been in Korea now for about 10 years, and I've never met a Korean that said they don't want to go to Australia. And the one thing that has been consistent about Australia is always ranked as #1 for inspiration and aspiration. That's a pretty good place to be. But what we've always struggled with is to convert them quickly and convert them tomorrow. So things that have changed within Korean society, I think these days it's less and less acceptable to cut back spending on travel. So there's an expectation amongst the Korean traveller and the Korean family that at least once or twice a year they're going to go somewhere, they're going to go overseas. So we're seeing numbers of about 22 million outbound. Now a lot of that's captured by LCCs and short haul destination, but it has created this expectation that there is going to be travel in their lives. Now for Australia, having that inspiration for a long period of time is great, but we haven't been trendy. So over the last couple of years, we've been working on different broadcast content and partnership marketing deals that have focused on making Australia trendy. And when we got it right, the numbers spiked. And we're seeing the third sort of upward trend now since the history of tourism Australia and Korea. And I think that focus on trendiness and fashionability, and I know everybody's probably seen K-pop and K-dramas and K-movies and all that sort of stuff. They're extremely trend-driven. If you're on trend, you're hot. So I think that's probably the biggest change that we've seen for Australia, and I hope that we can continue that going forward.
Okay. To add on top of that, what Andy have commented is like, in 2012, China itself is like we have only 2.86% of like people that have passport. As of like 31st of December 2016, that actually grows to like only 8.7 million people that has like a passport that actually travel either internationally or it's like a short haul destination. Just to go back into the business events, take for example a direct selling sector. We know direct selling is like has been such a big driver for this like business events because it comes in like thousands and thousands of people. Some direct selling company actually travels like 5 times a year to long haul destination. And 5 years ago, this direct selling company that's been approved by the Chinese government, there's only is like 23 of them. Now, as of today, is actually 82 of the direct selling company that's been approved by the Chinese government. Let me give you an example. 2 years ago, we have a company that came to us, is like requesting for information to travel to Australia, and that's asking for like 200 PAX delegates that wants to come. And when they travel to Australia on the day itself, it's actually 1,600 of them. That's increase of 800%. Of course, this is only like an example of a growing market and it's like a growing sectors. And also to add on to that, we always say share the love. We do see it's like larger groups now, it's like not only considering it's like gateway city like Sydney, Melbourne, we do see it's like they're dispersing to it's like other regional city. Just recently, Gold Coast have actually confirmed an 8,000 pack for 2018, and that's from an Infinitus group. And it's like South Australia has actually confirmed it's like one of the biggest incentive group this June, that is about 3,000 of them. We do see it's like a trend, it's like they're not only traveling on gateway city, but it's like moving to it's like other destination.
Great. Thank you. So this morning, John talked about how we're moving to behavioural targeting rather than demographics. Can you elaborate on what this means for your market and who your target customers are?
Sure. I mean,
Nishant?
The average cost per trip or spend per trip by an Indian is approximately around 5,000 Australian dollars. Indians normally travel with family and friends. You've got big families when you travel abroad. So even if you imagine a family of 4, that's almost $20,000 on a holiday. Indians also love to save for their future, for their children, and for their grandchildren. So it's quite a savings economy. So in order to spend $20,000 on a holiday, you need to have at least $100,000 in your bank account sitting idle so that you can spend on your next holiday. And there are just 0.2% of the entire population of India who can afford that kind of a luxury. And therefore, needless to say that our focus is on the high-value traveler, people who can contribute significantly to the Australian economy, people who like our experiences, like coastal and aquatic, food and wine, nature and wildlife, and people who would love to disperse, increase the length of stay, and therefore the whole objective of this, of our next year planning process is the fact that we want to drive yield, we want to drive dispersal, we want to increase the length of stay, and that will only happen once we have new products, new experiences, and new destinations. So once again, it's an opportunity for me to invite you all to be a part of this great story and capitalize on this opportunity.
Yeah, like India, Korea is finding that high-value traveller is a real sweet spot for us, not just for their ability to spend and the quantity of cash that they have, but they are the travel decision makers for a broader target audience as well. So we're really excited about the prospect of getting into that detail, finding not just the travellers, but also the travel decision makers for everybody else. So that has important implications too for working holiday makers and the youth market.
I think for us, it's really around, you find those who have demand for what Australia can offer. They have the spend power to really enjoy the Australia, and then who also have the sort of the social media, or at least the presence in the social media among the family and friends to be our advocate. And I think that sort of for us capture what high value is in the China market.
Okay. And Elsie, how's that different for
events? Is quite different because it's more towards B2B, and we do target the MICE, what we call business events agent, and the corporate client. If we're talking about 10 years ago, everybody goes to a MICE agent. They would not dare to actually approach a client because you will offend the MICE agent. But nowadays corporate client has become so sophisticated, they actually book their own hotels. So it's going with IHG Group or Shangri-La Group, it's those type of group. They book their own air tickets. So we need to actually target both corporates and the agent. Why? Because the agent will actually advise the corporate if it's a small group. If it's a bigger group, the corporate actually make a decision of a destination before even going to an agent for a bidding. We do see more leisure travel agents have actually moved on or even set up a MICE division because MICE or business events is actually more high yield as compared to a leisure travel. Based on a lot of research that we have done, MICE BE delegates actually spend double of a leisure delegates in China. I don't know about India and Korea, but in China they spend double. For example, there's a group of 112 of them that's recently went to Gold Coast. They have actually swept the entire LV store within 3 hours. Out of that, 112 of them, they bought 12 properties just within 2 nights staying in Gold Coast. And that 2 nights is 7 of them is actually they bought a villa and not just an apartment, a big huge villa that's a couple of millions. So this type of corporates and this type of travelers is we talk about big ones like Amway 8,300, but we do talk about the smaller ones that we need to target to because they're so high use, they travel on helicopter. I just received a call yesterday asking me, can you get 600 helicopters at the same time? I was it's going to be hard.
So, turning our focus to distribution now, Elsie, I think your distribution is really B2B. How do you reach your target customers?
Look, I think we are in China approaching a very much an online and mobile model. The more people that are researching and booking online than offline. And Ctrip, as many of you know, is the largest player in the market. Last year, we launched a strategic partnership with Ctrip. We've actually created a new landing page on Ctrip just for Australia. It's called australia.ctrip.com. And the reason for that is because we want to have that cut through in otherwise a very busy ecosystem within Ctrip and drive traffic to find out more about what Australia has to offer. And then on that page, we have a section for all of our key distribution partners to sell the quality product. We also have a section for our premium Aussie specialist that every consumer can just have an online chat with if they want to find out more about specific experiences or destinations. And then we're also looking to expand this partnership with C-Trip to all the states and territories. In fact, we have created a section on that page where the link exists to link to the state-specific site. Because I think in my conversations with many people in the industry, C-Trip obviously is one of the key partner on your list as well. But the challenge is how do we get the cut through on a C-Trip that has more than 50% of market share. So hopefully through that partnership, that we can actually create a platform that will give you a better access to the Chinese consumers who are very online savvy and then who rely on C-Trip to book a lot of the FIT experiences here.
Well, the distribution landscape in India is extremely complex and fragmented. And the traditional 80-20 Pareto rule doesn't really apply to this market. So anecdotally, the top 10% of the agents contribute to just 20% of the business, and the balance 90% contribute to almost 80% of the business. So the cost of servicing this market is extremely high. One of the largest online travel agents in the country, Make My Trip, their annual volumes to Australia won't be more than 1,200 passengers. And while they are an OTA, most of the bookings happen offline through their call centers and through their traditional brick and mortar outlets. Thomas Cook, again, one of the biggest group tour and FIT organization in India and one of our key Aussie specialist agents, the annual business won't be more than 3,500 packs a year to Australia. And their market share is less than around 3% of the total volume of business to Australia. So my advice to the industry is if you're coming to this market for the first time, you should focus on just 2 cities, or maybe maximum 3 cities, that's Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and concentrate not more than 80 to 100 agents, because what these top agents do, others just simply follow and emulate them. Whereas if you're an experienced product, have been nurturing this market for almost over a decade or so, then you can possibly expand your horizons to maybe 8 to 10 cities and not beyond that, covering up to 200 agents, because, as I said, the cost of servicing this market is extremely high. Whilst most of the search and the research happens through the online medium, bookings finally happen through the offline medium, through the travel agents. Almost 64% of bookings in India happen through the offline medium. Having said that, that's changing with the evolution of technology and credit cards and all. Again, just to give an example, the credit card penetration in the country is less than 2%, and the average credit limit per person is less than $1,000, which would just not able you to book an airfare or a trip to Australia at such low credit limits. So it's quite traditional in that sense, but it's also changing rapidly, post the demonetization that took place in our country in November and December.
The distribution system in Korea is a little bit more straightforward. The grey area is really straight, pure OTAs and traditional travel agents who have moved into the OTA space. So there is very few pure OTAs. One of the bigger ones is Interpark. We work very closely with them, and similar to C-Trip, developed an Australia brand mall, and that's a great way to get some Korean language content out to the consumer, which is essential, and I'll probably get a chance to talk a bit more about that in a little bit. But the bigger players like your Hana Tours and your Mode Tours, for those who are familiar with the industry, are still big players. They're still important to us, but they are very good at adapting to the changes in consumer buying behaviour. They're investing a lot in their own technology, certainly mobile first, and still having some decent landing pages. I think that one thing that you should know about the Korean consumer when it comes to purchasing travel is while they're okay to look it up and they're spending an hour on their mobile while they're on the subway or at work not working, they will not hesitate for a second to pick up the phone and call somebody to get an answer. It's very common on the streets of Korea to just stop a random person and ask them a question. I've had a mixed experience with that. Koreans will give you a direction even if it's the wrong direction, just to be polite. So just bear that in mind if you have a visit there. But there is still a role to play for these big agents to actually have people that are able to pick up the phone and communicate with them. And if they want to change, they'll call and change, and somebody needs to be there at the end of the phone. So I would say, as it applies to your business, try to build relationships with these bigger agents as well as some of the smaller FIT-focused ones, especially the up-and-coming ones. And for those who have been in the industry for a long time and dealt with the Korean market for a long time, it's refreshed in the mind of the agents now in the market. They're getting a better understanding of what's available in Australia. They've seen that the consumers want it and it's become fashionable. So the level of engagement you're likely to get if you do go over there is much higher than you would have had from the fatigue of the last 9 years.
Okay, great. So turning to social media now, it's a really important part of, an increasingly important part of everybody's marketing mix. What channels are important for your markets?
We're a very different market when it comes to social media. I just want to know how many people here use WeChat? Raise your hand. Just want to have a look.
Oh,
Wow.
That's a quite
Well
sizable
done.
number.
It's great, actually. WeChat is not just a social media platform. I mean, it's pretty much everything. You know, it's I think many of you probably use WeChat to talk to your agents, isn't it? It's becoming like a tool you can manage your stakeholders in some extent. It is becoming a massive bank because people in China use WeChat Pay to pay for pretty much everything. And the money that sits in the WeChat in Tencent, that's not even regulated as a bank, when you think about it, it's quite phenomenal. And even though WeChat started off as social media, what it also has expanded into is an ecosystem that allows the businesses to reach the consumers in addition to just you as a consumer reaching to your family and friends. And what that means is that anyone or any business can get on WeChat and they will be able to develop the content, push the content, manage the distributors or distribution partners, and connect with WeChat Pay so the consumers can make a payment over the WeChat to your business, whether before they travel or during the travel when they're in destination. We also look at about Weibo, which is another quite popular social media platform, but that's a bit more straightforward, like Twitter. You publish a content, and then people can read about it. The engagement in Weibo is not as high as WeChat because people see WeChat to be a lot more personal. And I think the best way to understand why WeChat is so powerful is to actually try it out. And I look at my own behavior on my mobile, and I can tell you that I probably spend 90% of my time on WeChat app alone. And then I also look at in terms of my behavior of paying for things and buying things. Since I lived in China, I can tell you that in the past 6 months, and last night pulled all my transactions out and just do a bit of calculation. If I don't count me withdrawing cash from ATM, 95% of my personal transaction value was done through WeChat Pay or Alipay, which means that we have gone mobile, and if it's mobile, WeChat and Alipay are the two payment systems that Chinese consumers use.
Wow.
So what does this mean for suppliers in this room?
Right. I think what it means, and I know that many of us look at the China ever-changing landscape and then wonder, when does it stop changing? And it will never stop changing. And it's really about embracing the new trend in order to benefit the most from a very dynamic landscape. And UnionPay was, in the past, something that everybody embraced. And when you look at UnionPay these days, unless you transact face-to-face, or that you transact through a call center or through desktop, UnionPay is still very relevant. But when it comes to mobile, that people prefer to use Alipay and WeChat Pay a lot more frequent. I know we've got operators here who have embraced the Alipay system. I think Bridgeclimb is one of the leaders in that space. And I think one of the advice that I will give to our industry here is to look into the option of having WeChat Pay and Alipay being one of the payment schemes that you can offer to the Chinese consumers, because what that you will give to them is that convenience of payment, and the payment is fundamental to your business.
Great advice, thanks. Nishan?
It's pretty simple in India. We've got 3 clear platforms. One, you have the Google family, or the Google platform comprising of GDN, search, and YouTube. The next one is Facebook. Facebook and Instagram, we could use this platform for with the carousel ads, videos, and content. And the third includes programmatic buying, retargeting, and some of the content-based initiatives on Outbrain and Taboola. We do not have the luxury of paying online because the mobile wallets allow a maximum transaction of just around 20,000 rupees or $400 per transaction. So it just limits the ability to book online using these mobile wallets. So again, the advice to the industry would be to work with the key distribution partners, work with all these specialist agents, ensure that you give them online access to rates and tariffs which are valid for a much longer period so that they can launch Australia early and be able to compete with other competitor destinations effectively.
Right, and it all changes again with South
Yeah.
Korea. Yep.
Yeah. Korea's credit cards. I'll get into social media, but since Andy focused on WeChat Pay, there is those kind of mechanisms in Korea, Kakao Pay and Samsung Pay. They were brought out probably before WeChat Pay, but WeChat Pay is just skyrocketed. So credit cards are still important to the Koreans, and they've got a lot of options for credit cards. They're getting points and they're getting messages when they use their card, and it's all sorts of stuff. I get all sorts of messages from the credit card companies. It's really great. In terms of the three social media platforms that we're focused on, the one that you need to think about for your business is Naver. Naver is Korea's largest search engine. They have a monopoly in this space. Google and Daum are there, and they do an excellent job, but Koreans are very used to using Naver, and Naver have expanded their business into so many different areas. Sometimes they've been a little bit similar to things like Instagram and others, even Facebook to a point, but if your product is not searchable in Korean by this mechanism, by this platform, then you don't exist. So there's a number of different ways to access that, and it's hard to go into them all now, but I will just say, if there is an opportunity for you to work with a Korean blogger or a Korean influencer, whether it's through a Tourism Australia or other opportunity, then jump at it, because they will be able to get your content on there. And your Korean partners too will be able to do it for you. So that's number one. Facebook is increasing in usage in Korea, so investing some time and energy in getting some Korean content on Facebook is important. We're seeing great engagement from the Korean consumer. They are very chatty once you get them. So that's one that we will focus on. And also Kakao. So like WeChat, Kakao started as the messenger app for the Koreans. Every Korean uses it, I think I can say that. But it hasn't quite progressed into the full service system like WeChat has, although they are trying to move in that direction. So establishing a relationship with them, or at least understanding how Koreans are using it. And if you're going to talk to Korean agents, you have to have that app. It's free, so it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elsie, is social media important?
Social media is definitely important. We call WeChat, it's like super app. We call them super app. And it's like WeChat have about 846 million users, it's like monthly user, active user. So it's like for BE, we do encourage it's like anyone that's in business events, go on WeChat, it's like speak to your MICE agent or your corporate, that's how you do business. People now, it's like nowadays in China, they don't really read emails. They go on WeChat. As Andy have mentioned, how many % of your time that you spend on WeChat?
Spend about too much. But if I give you a bit of sense of the transactions that has gone through WeChat, I remember the number for 2016, there's about $550 billion US transaction took place on WeChat Pay. And I think similar scale for Alipay. And this whole sort of embracing a cashless society wasn't something the Chinese woke up the next day saying, oh, I'm going to stop using my cash. It was, both companies took advantage of some of the user behaviors and provided convenience. Like for WeChat, started as sort of a social media platform. People talk to each other. And during Chinese New Year, one of the habits for Chinese people is to give red envelopes as cash, as a goodwill and wish you luck. And then, as life gets busier, many people can't go home for reunion or they travel abroad. So, what WeChat has done is to allow people to transfer cash over WeChat as, electronic red envelope. And then when that was used by people thought, oh, it's great. What an easy way of doing that. And therefore, you've got many people start to transfer the money over to each other on a WeChat, and you don't have to reveal your bank information because it's all linked to your bank account. And then the next thing you know is that you've got consumers have a bit of a cash sitting in their WeChat wallet. And then what Tencent did next is to bring some third-party payment into suppliers into WeChat platform saying, well, for small items, why don't you just use your extra cash sitting in your WeChat account and pay them, taxi, takeaway, meals, and so forth. And through that process of people getting used to it, then they start to feel comfortable to make bigger and bigger purchase, including air ticket, hotels, travel packages. And then there's no limit in terms of how much that you can pay via WeChat. I mean, the limit is the money sitting in your bank account. And it's that sort of evolution that took place in about 2 years' time to a point where China is pretty much cashless these days. And if you go to Shanghai, just stand in a convenience shop, observe for 10 minutes, and you see how many people actually will use Alipay or WeChat Pay to pay for the stuff.
Okay, great. We're getting tight on time, but I did want to just touch on one of the things that jumped out at me when I was doing the recent trip that I did was that people are still very interested in the iconic experiences, but there is more and more demand for other experiences and as markets get more sophisticated, they want a more depth of experience. So do you want to highlight what sort of experiences your customers are looking for now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Quick one for China is that Chinese consumers now looking for things that's more personable, that's more tailor-made. And I think Chinese consumers are fun people, they're curious, and they want to have more interesting experiences. They're very like you guys, and which means that when they come to Australia, it's more than just ticking the box. It's more than just bragging about they've been to Australia. It's really about enriching themselves to become more interesting people and becoming a better global citizen. And I think I've heard from many Chinese consumers that what they want to do is things that normally are not available to mass consumers. Something that adds a bit of a kind of twist, and that they can discover more about the local culture and make some local friends. So I think it's really about bringing out the very warm Aussie hospitality that you guys all very much passionate about, and then give that to our Chinese consumers. The truth is that they come to Australia and they spend money. And they're very, very much keen to understand how we live, what is this lifestyle, and they're willing to pay for it, and they're willing to tell their friends and family to come and enjoy what Australia has to offer. So make it more personable for them.
Are they willing to pay for that?
Yes.
Okay.
In India, there's a concept called as thali. A thali is where you're served food and you have small bowls in which you get unlimited portions of food which is available. So Indians love everything. Once they come back from a holiday, they actually need another break to just rest and relax because they pack just everything into that holiday. So right from Great Barrier Reef to Japukai to Kuranda to 4 full-on days on the Gold Coast to Sydney, doing the Opera House, Harbour Bridge, day trips to Blue Mountain, Hunter Valley. On the same day, you might do either Captain Cook cruise or a Warriors Sydney Showboat cruise. You do the Great Ocean Road Drive the next day, do Phillip Island, Yarra Valley. So they just make their lives or holiday exactly miserable after that particular thing. So it's quite as I said, they want to pack in everything. But having said that, this traveler is really a high value traveler because he wants to contribute to the economy. And while he's a cost-conscious person, he's all extremely value-conscious person as well. He would haggle for $10, but wouldn't mind spending even $1,000 on something that he feels is worth purchasing. So quite a unique animal, and whether it's a FIT or a GIT or business events, everyone loves to fill in as much as they can on their holiday. You don't see an Indian lazing around on the beach or just staying in a hotel or resort for 3 nights and doing nothing or reading a book.
I think we can thank Korea for selfie sticks. They might claim ownership of those, but the Korean consumer has changed. They'll still have their selfie sticks along with everybody else, but just going to a place to see a particular thing is not enough for them. They actually want to know now what they can do, the activity that they're going to do, the activity that's different from what they would get at home, the activity that's different from what they would get in a competitive destination. So our big challenge at the moment is trying to find those unique fun activities that are available in Australia and sell it to them. So they're fairly discerning and they are adventurous. They'll come from Korea stressed and hopefully they'll leave relaxed. And I can tell you, the recent Jin Air flights to Cairns, I went down on the inaugural flight, came back 3 days later. The people getting on those flights were completely different people, happy, laughing, smiling. They had a really good time. And the thing that stood out for me is that every single one of them did just about every experience in Cairns that they could. And I would say that in the past, it was more about the photo. Now it's more about what you can do.
Yeah. From B perspective, it's like they want unique experiences like money cannot buy. What is money cannot buy? It's like when we look at this, like what John have shown earlier on the presentation, the new skin 4,000 people right in front of the Opera House. You can't do that in Tiananmen Square in Beijing. There's no way on earth it's like the Chinese government will allow 4,000 people taking that photo. So it's like for BE, it's definitely unique experience. Money cannot buy, and they love to be on the Guinness World of Record. So if you're able to get that Guinness World of Record to them, they want to come to your destination.
Great. Now, we're almost out of time. Is there one key takeout from each of your markets that you want to leave with the industry? Andy, do you want to start?
Get on WeChat.
That was clear. That was made very clear, Nishant.
Have a sustained presence in this market, not just one-off trip. Develop relations with the ITOs and ensure that the products that you create for the market are well communicated, and just keep demanding for business. It's not just about building a relationship, but also demanding for business so that...
That's like 17 things.
I'm adding commas and semicolons to it, man.
Right, okay. To access the Korean market, you've got to have relationships, including social media. Relationships is key.
Yes, definitely relationship, definitely agree with it. If you have no representative in the China market or you're not into China, what you can do is like be connected with your convention bureau, your local convention bureau, Business Event Sydney, Melbourne Convention Bureau, Brisbane Marketing. Those people will be able to help you to tap into the China market, or come and look for our Tourism Australia BE team, and we can help. As mentioned by John, we are a platform, we're here to help and support.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of the panel questions. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into the potential in the Asia market, and also the nuances, of the different markets, and how, even though it's sort of broad brush Asia, they're very, very different markets within that, and also the importance of strong and long-lasting relationships. I think one final point to note from me is that entering into a new market is not a short-term proposition. You need to have a 3 to 5 year plan, and you really need to moderate your expectations of what the returns are going to be in the first couple of years. But having said that, if you do persevere, then there is unlimited potential in Asia. So I'd just like to thank my panellists, Andy Zhang, Nishant Kashikar, Scott Walker, and Elsie Tan.
Thanks, Viv.
Thank you.